So first of all, I have to say, Angelo Ferrari is a perfect name for an opera singer. Has anybody ever told you that before?
I've heard that all my life.
You were meant to be an opera singer.
Yeah, probably so. My father's an opera singer, so I kind of fell into it. But
So, what makes opera special to you?
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is opera is probably the most complete art form, because if you stage an opera, you have besides the singing, you have to be a proficient singer, you have to be an actor. There's a staging. There might be some kind of movements like duels or dancing. Uh, it's got drama. It's got comedy. It has everything. It has its beauty.
And so, why do you think people love opera even if they can't understand the words?
I think because that music makes you feel something.
Mm.
So if it's done well, you suffer with the person. You cry with the person singing. Your joy. You feel the pain, the betrayal, and not just the singing, the music that comes along with it. The great composers are the great composers for a reason, because they knew how to communicate that pathos for any story, those feelings.
You're a tenor.
Yes.
So, could you explain to us what is a tenor? How would you describe it to a simpleton or someone who doesn't have any knowledge of that kind of thing?
Well, the tenor voice is the what we would call the high male voice. We basically have four types in any kind of singing, but mainly in the classical arts. We've got the tenor, who's the higher voice, the baritone, who's the lower voice. Actually, we have a bass, who's even lower. We have the soprano, and we have the mezzo soprano. And within each category, there's subcategories. There might be a high tenor, a more dramatic tenor that does still tenor roles, but they don't have the extreme high notes. Uh, there's baritones, there's bass baritones, there's basses. So yeah, so the tenor's the higher of those.
Higher, okay. Interesting. So, what separates a great tenor from an average tenor?
Um, that's a good question. I would say that obviously probably natural ability is one thing. It's just like what separates a great quarterback from an average quarterback is the ability to perform consistently, time after time,
Consistency.
after yeah, the consistency that to have that discipline, to that longevity, the technique. I would say any of those would make somebody great. But then there's some singers, some athletes that just have it,
Mm.
and that's certainly is part of it.
So, I know you said your dad was a performer. Did he notice you had it from a young age, way before you started performing?
No, probably not, because when I was little, even I was surrounded and immersed in music, so naturally that's the last thing that I wanted to do.
Okay.
I wanted to be out with the soccer ball or
Okay.
out with the basketball, but he was always and has always been incredibly encouraging, and I grew up around amazing artists.
Mm. So you started performing at 18 years old. That's pretty cool experience. I mean, you're just a
Yeah.
kid, and all of a sudden the whole world is in front of you. So what specifically led to this starting at such a young age?
I was out of high school. I raced bikes professionally for a while, and there were some obstacles in that as I remember. And I'd come back to visit my parents, and a friend of my dad's that was putting on an opera with a big company in Mexico, with not Bellas Artes in Mexico City, but with the Bellas Artes company traveling in the north, and they kind of lost their tenor. And I was asked, would you like to try? And I said, sure. When I mean, it was a very odd situation, but I did try, and it just kind of worked.
Wow.
It just kind of worked. I was really lucky at 18 to sing a leading role with a professional company. I think that was one of the youngest, if not the youngest at that time.
And so you being young, is there a general age where a tenor's voice peaks? Because I know like the bass, like a lot of them won't be till they're in their 40s until they have it gets
Sure.
better, it gets deeper. But is it more of in general, is it more of a young man a tenor's game or middle age
No,
or not? It doesn't
no.
really matter.
A man's voice peaks later in life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm 55, and I feel that my voice is still coming with changes.
Wow.
It still changes. There's still things that I'm surprised that it does. It brings on different colors. Obviously, as a young man, you have it doesn't have the darker colors, or it's not complete from the bottom to the top. So there's a lot of maturity that comes along. Just as like the man in his body. You know, men are really strong, maybe in their 30s and 40s. The voice comes right along, and if you take care of it, and if you have a very good technique, there's no end in sight to how long that.
So when you were at a young age, you're out on the road. How did that go? Like after your first performance, did you start traveling rapidly, or were you stationed in one place for a while?
You know, I started traveling pretty quickly. I did a lot of singing in Italy, a lot of concerts. You know, there's a lot of concerts in every town has a concert series.
Mm-hmm.
Every city has a concert series. So I pretty much got engaged with those pretty quickly, singing a lot of sacred music, bel canto. Also Mexico, I did a lot of singing there. Same kind of concerts, just stuff. I was very lucky that I had my father to kind of guide me on how to start a career and how to not do too much too soon, or not take on the wrong things too soon. So yeah, but I took my time in a sense studying. I studied a lot. Still do actually.
And that's why you bring value to profession, because you're always learning. Kind of like the humble mentality keeps you constantly growing.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I think that's we never stop learning at anything.
Well, yeah.
Sure.
Hopefully.
So you have to be. I think we all have to be open, and everything that we do is we never stop.
I like that. Yeah, they say the only constant in this world is change. As soon as you stop changing, you're dying.
Sure.
And so you were kind of young at the time. What did the other opera people think? Like, because you were a young guy, did they take you under their wing, or does some of them have kind of a stuck-up attitude because they'd worked longer to get there, or did they treat you like a little brother? Or people very supportive?
You know, I rarely had it. Can't think of any problems I've ever had with anybody. Obviously, a lot of the performers were older than me, but I always took the approach as if people that had more experience than I did, I wanted to learn from them. So I always had that attitude, and I feel that that's what I put out, and that's what I always came back. They were always very friendly with me, very, very generous, very giving in their knowledge, and just by standing next to a great artist, you learn.
Yeah, it's contagious. Did it ever make you cocky at all, becoming a professional at a young age, or was there ever a time in your life, in your 30s or 40s, or any time where you did get cocky for a bit?
No, I don't. I think that's not my personality.
Yeah.
As you go more into your career or in anything, there's certain things you start expecting. But I guess I always had like a great example in my father, who was truly a great artist and a very famous singer, and he always remained a really simple, engaging person. And the artists that I always worked with or met in my life, it just seemed that the greater artists they were, the easier it was to or the more beautiful person they were. In most cases,
agree. I agree. Wow, I like the way you put that. That's cool. There's a lot of people we put up on pedestals, but the great artists, they see that they're a conduit for something. They're just thankful that they were able to be that conduit.
Sure.
So,
but the only way, just to add to that, the only way you can remain, not just a great artist, but just good at what you do, is constantly going back to the beginning and practicing the basics. And so if you have that mentality of always working on your craft, I think that keeps you also with your eyes open and your brain open.
I like that. To me, that's everything. Doing the same things like it's the first time.
For sure, absolutely.
Practicing. They say practice makes perfect. I disagree. I think practicing is perfect.
Sure.
So as long as you're practicing, you're moving towards something. And so.
And then to add to that, to something you asked earlier, I think a great artist always strives for perfection. I know we always say we're not supposed to be perfect, but I truly believe that you can strive for perfection, whether you hit it or not.
Yeah.
You set the goal really high, and that's where you need to strive for.
And then you have a clean conscience and spirit, whether you hit it or not, because at least you're trying for the perfection. And so you're not going to hit it every time, but it's what keeps you always moving forward.
And I think that's the big difference between a student and a working good artist in any craft.
Well, this is a little bit of a colorful question, but you were a young guy, and you're very good looking and cool too.
Thank you.
Are there any groupies in the opera scene? Because I know in music, art usually goes with it attracts people because people are attracted to people who are creative. Did you ever experience any of that or notice any of that?
Yeah, I think we all do. I think that can happen to anybody. It's probably not like a rock star.
Yeah.
But I always used to make fun of that, saying that I was a hit with the under 8 and over 80 crowd. little girls and grandmothers always loved me.
The odd demographic.
Right.
That's interesting. So it's more like spirit groupies. They just love your
Yeah, yeah,
energy.
yeah,
Yeah. Different than rock star groupies. That's interesting.
for
That's
sure.
interesting. Okay, so your voice is obviously still very good and you still
Thank you.
perform. What's a kind of like a routine that you would do to get ready for a performance?
Um, well, I practice almost every day to keep my voice in shape. To me, it's always been just like a sport.
Mm-hmm.
I You have to constantly practice, and certainly depending on what you're going to sing, you start preparing that repertoire or that piece for a performance. So it's just constant practice and taking care of your body and your voice and your health. Your body is your instrument. So
So, what are some things you do to take care of your body? You said you cycle.
yeah, I mean, for me personally, I like to exercise a lot. Um, don't nothing in excess. If you drink, don't drink too much. Your body has to be rested. Your mind has to be rested to be able to do these things.
It's very cool that you're accountable to yourself and the people you're performing for. So, could you walk us through what your day would look like on the night of a performance? Like what time you wake up, what kind of things you eat, what maybe you're meditating, maybe you're stretching, like what does it look like leading up to the performance?
Um, so leading the day of a performance is allegedly everything's ready and you've learned everything,
Mm-hmm.
but there's always
Allegedly.
there's always always last minute, um, looking at music and stuff. But on the days off, I like to rest. I feel that
Okay.
if I rest, and that means just rest. That's you know, get up a little bit later if you can, and if you can't, just relax. Rest your voice. To me, it's to me, if my body and my mind is in a tranquil place, that's what it is for me. I don't necessarily meditate, but I'll watch TV for the afternoon or for the day and just kind of just rest and get ready, because when we perform, you have this energy output that's that is like somebody that runs a marathon or a sprint. You have to give out all that energy in a 2 hour span,
Mm.
and you have to rest because afterward it's very draining. So, and for me personally, I can tell a difference whether I've rested or not. It's night and day.
Wow. I like that. So you work real hard at your craft. You put in all the practice. But when it comes time to perform, you have to be relaxed. You can't.
Sure.
It's like you already did your homework, so it's time to just go on.
Oh, absolutely.
And so you said after a performance, you can feel very exhausted. So it's a full exhaustion that your throat, your mind, your body, like you've just given so much
Yeah,
focus and energy.
for me, not so much of the throat.
Okay,
I
not
mean,
the
your
throat.
voice does get tired,
Mm.
but I mean, I've sung 2 3 hours, and
Wow.
I mean, but that's what we're trained for as opera singers. If you have a good technique, you should be able to sing for a while. Um, so yeah, but I mean, your voice does get tired, but it's more to me, it's more of an emotional type.
Because you're really putting your spirit
Yeah,
into the words.
I mean,
and so-
obviously, sometimes your body hurts. God, I sing some very difficult things, so sometimes my muscles in my back
Wow.
are sore,
Yeah.
or I've sweated out like a gallon of liquids. But besides that, it's a very emotional type thing. So the days after a couple of a small concert or even just an intense concert, it's like emotionally and this is more of a mental type drain. I don't know how to explain it exactly.
So what do you do to make sure you're full emotionally after? What do you do to recharge?
Just kind of take it easy, relax a little bit,
Mm.
engage in something else maybe.
Well, you've traveled so much that makes you super interesting on top of everything. Performing in Italy, Japan, Austria, Mexico, all over USA, Romania, Switzerland, all over the world, really. Is there any place that sticks with you as a favorite place you've performed or favorite venue?
I can't think of one, but I have to say that what really, how do we say that? What's the word? What really turns me on about performing somewhere is thinking of the history
Me too. I like that.
that's there. So,
Vienna.
I mean, yeah, like Vienna. I sang so many times in Vienna, and you think of, wow, who sang here? Even last year, or 10 years ago, or 100 years ago, Salzburg. You're singing where Mozart worked, where Beethoven was there, where great singers before you came out. Because some of these theaters, in some form or fashion, were certainly were there 200 years ago, but there's others that where we've performed that were there in the 1500s or 1600s.
Amazing.
And you start thinking, wow, the castrati were here. Puccini worked here. Puccini finished an opera here. Stuff like that. That's really, really interesting. And that leads to a thread also. You're singing something that another great artist was here doing before you a generation ago. And and you feel somehow connected to that.
Yeah.
But that artist was somehow connected to the generation before.
Wow.
And that's beautiful too. That's really cool. And it's the same for everybody. The conductor, the violinist. It's
wow.
To me, that's my personal.
So what I'm hearing is almost like when you're a real artist, you can sometimes connect with eternity through your art. You can.
For sure, because art and music are eternal. That's
wow.
Without question.
I just assume that your average demographic is wealthy people. Do you think being an opera singer has put you around more wealthy people or introduced you more people you can network with that has helped you in other aspects of life or in business, or not necessarily?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I'm always amazed at the people that I'm around.
Mm-hmm.
That I have been. That I think. Why? What am I doing here? I'm with this famous person, or this prime minister, or this president of here, or ambassador from there. And not that they were friends of mine, but
yeah.
But it was they were there to hear me sing, and I was able to be around them, and that was really cool. But I don't think that's how should I put it? Music isn't limited to wealth, so
mm-hmm.
I think anybody can enjoy music. And
mm-hmm.
just if I've had great experiences with people that on the outside are like, wow, this person's done everything. I mean, there's a famous person or whatever. I've also had people that college students or people that are not that yet seem to enjoy the music as much. But like in anything, the more you network, the more that's your true wealth. The more you network, the more contacts you have, the more people you know, the more you learn from people. In any part of life, that's your wealth.
I hope y'all remember that. Network, knowledge. That's gonna give you options.
I would say though that I always approach my singing. I grew up in the music business,
mm-hmm.
so I always approach my singing as a business.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's a very big key.
Mm.
So I had that from day one, and a lot of my colleagues and I see a lot of singers today, or musicians, or young people, that don't start out that way because they don't know. You go to your college, you get your master's, you get your PhD, and then what do? You get your PhD in performance, but have you performed anywhere in the professional world? Probably not. How do you start? So I seeing it as a business was a big thing. So that's part of that networking thing is you start making goals, and you start going after those goals. Doing
things for a reason instead of just flippant.
Sure.
You've lived all over the world. Could you please just go over with us the cities you lived at? Where did you move first? You moved to Mexico when you were 18?
No, actually, we came here when I was little,
mm-hmm.
or a child to the States. My father retired here in Texas, in El Paso.
Oh, nice.
Of all places. So I grew up and finished school there. I love El Paso as well. Our home base in Italy is Brescia, which is not far from Milan. So the Lake Garda region it feels like home. I've lived in a couple of places in Italy. I've lived in Vienna, Salzburg, places in Germany, Switzerland. I truly love Switzerland as a place to live.
Why? Can you elucidate or elaborate?
I think that it's everything that you like, that you love from Italy.
Yeah.
But organized.
I'm not sure your hometown would like that, but they might understand it.
But Italy's beautiful too. I mean, there's so many beautiful places in the world.
So many.
I think if you're achieving your goals and you're a happy person within yourself,
mm-hmm.
you're happy wherever you go.
That's wisdom in a nutshell. If you're happy within yourself, you can be happy wherever you're at. People blame too much, but they need to take responsibility.
Sure. For
their own thoughts. So, when did you end up back in Houston?
Probably, I've had a home base in Houston for probably 20 years. But as an opera singer, I was based more over there, traveling around. I mean, as a performer, you're bouncing around all the time. You don't really have a home base. You literally are, if you're working a lot, you're out of your suitcase all the time.
And you were okay living on the road? It never got to you, like, feeling disconnected from a home base?
No. I mean, yeah, but like I said, I grew up kind of seeing that,
yeah.
So it didn't really affect me. But I do say that traveling does get tiring.
Is it hard, was it ever hard to maintain friends or relationships when you were
Sure.
traveling?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Because you're well, if you're in a relationship, that it's strained because you're far away. But even friendships, because when you're traveling a lot, maybe I see you for a week,
Hmm.
and we do, we're great friends, and then wow, I'm on the other side of the world all of a sudden, and I'm thinking, God, is he okay? What happened to him? Did he get that job? Did he do that thing? And you start having all these little, snippets of friendships, and
Mm.
on the other side of that, you make great friends everywhere too. You meet beautiful people
Very cool.
because the world is full of these, just amazing people everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I feel everyone has a character in them, so it's up to you to bring the character out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like when you see the good in people, you can bring out the good in people. You know.
Sure.
So what are your favorite things about being an opera singer?
Favorite things, I think, for sure the places that I've seen, the people that I've met, and favorite things. That's a good question.
Take your time.
Hmm.
There's probably a lot you have to be thankful for.
Oh, for sure. I mean, God, if there's one, there's a million things that I have to be thankful for. But yeah, the favorite thing is the things that it's allowed me to do as far as being able to see places and meet people and just be in these amazing, having the opportunity to perform in truly amazing places.
Mm. Now you seem like someone who's very cognizant of how blessed they have it and how you're living a life that suits your character and you get to share with people. Is that a common theme around opera musicians? Do they all seem as full and as thankful for their life as you? Like, are they? I know it's a generalization, but are they pretty typically feeling fortunate to have that career and make the most of it, or do they ever? Or
No,
is it
I
just like any
think,
other?
I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I do think that people reach, in any profession, you reach a certain point where you think, where you have to be grateful.
Mm.
If you have any kind of intelligence, you have to stop and say, I'm grateful for this. You achieve it because you work at it, but you achieve it because people have helped you, or you've been blessed to achieve it. Having said that, we all go through the same, at any level of at any profession, go through the same problems. Oh my God, I need more work. I need a manager. Nobody wants me. We all, there's the constant emotions of push pull.
How many managers have you had?
Probably managers that just managed me exclusively throughout my career, maybe two or three, but I've worked with maybe 30 different agencies, 30 different agents. That's very typical.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, but managers, probably like two or three that really, one in particular that guided me a lot in Europe.
Are you still close with these managers today?
No, unfortunately, they've passed.
Oh, sorry. You keep them with you in
For
spirit.
sure,
Try
yes.
to embody some of the best things they showed you. So, what advice would you give to anyone who wanted to become an opera singer?
I would say study. Just study, prepare as much as you can, and find a good teacher.
Mm.
Although at a risk of it not making sense to a lot of people, I would say that you need to study. You need to emulate what the old singers did and study privately, with a private coach.
Okay.
Uh, Only because this is the academia is very different from what prepares you for the professional world, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like if you're a football player. If you're a football player or whatever, a soccer player or a basketball player, you can't go practice half an hour twice a week. You better be practicing every day for several hours, or studying, or always honing your craft. I would say that that's the advice: is always hone your craft at different aspects of it. Make a plan and just practice and practice. What got me up, I love to practice. I love to learn and study. I always used to think, well, if you're not practicing, somebody else is.
Mm.
So that's enough to get you practicing. For me.
Yeah. Stay grounded by being honest with yourself.
Sure.
So here's another kind of colorful question. So you have to take care of your voice, so you don't want to do excess. Have you ever known opera singers to get too hard into drugs or alcohol like other musicians do? Or they pretty much, since they know that their voice is their career,
no, there's a lot of people
they can
that
still
take
start
advantage.
and then go.
Sure.
But they don't really. But you almost never see them smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, A lot of singers smoke.
Oh, really?
Sure.
And their voice will maintain as long as they
Um,
practice, or it starts to.
No, it starts. It takes its toll. But you have to figure. Being on stage and performing is a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
It's a lot of pressure, and whether you're singing for 10 people or 1,000 people or 5,000 people, and a lot of people, you have to learn how to deal with that, because everybody wants something from you, and if the better you get at your craft, or the better you get, the more people expect.
Mm.
You know, the more people expect perfection, or they expect you to do this every single day, and just like anybody else, it turns to either a drug or alcohol as an escape. So you need to be. I would caution people, or that would be the only thing to watch out for. But that's the reason for it, is a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. Yeah. Speaking of pressure and performing, have you ever been embarrassed on stage, or was there ever a time where you just failed and you knew it and you had to come back?
I've never really had any great fiascos on stage.
Okay, okay. It's been a smooth. Seems like your whole adult life has been pretty smooth. And
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far either. But I mean, anything can happen live, and anything can happen on stage.
Yeah.
Funny things like that. I was in an opera where we went to open the door and the whole door fell off. Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I've never had like a mental like I've never had a huge problem.
Yeah.
We practice and rehearse to minimize those.
So, when you're traveling, do you become real close with the other performers? You're all kind of just practicing so much that y'all are friendly, but not so close. What's the
depends.
community like?
It's a large community, but obviously if you're doing a production that has maybe 50 shows or something like that, you become really good friends with people. It's like anything else, but in our world, you're thrown together, so you're like 8 hours a day of rehearsing and performing, and you make friends. People you like, people maybe you don't like as much, but you do become very close with people. And if not, it's I sang with you this month, and I'll see you in 6 months for whatever other production that we're gonna do together elsewhere. See, yeah, you do meet a lot of people, and that was also a really cool thing. Everywhere you go, you know somebody, or you know somebody that knows somebody.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Got the keys to the cities.
Yeah.
What do you think are the pitfalls that an opera singer or performer needs to watch out for that could derail their career?
Well, for an opera singer, for sure, singing the wrong repertoire. So
What does that mean for a layman's wrong
So, for
repertoire?
example, if you're a young opera singer, and like I said earlier, there's different types of voices. So if you're singing, if you're geared towards 1800s music, which is typically seen as a little bit more bel canto, lighter in a sense, don't be singing stuff that if you're 20, don't be singing stuff that a 40-year-old should be singing, because it's a darker, more dramatic. It's different, and you do that enough, and you start harming yourself.
Oh, I see. So, try to find your voice and play to it instead of.
Sure. Be smart about how you progress. To me, that would be that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Okay. So, in your opinion, is opera getting less popular in the current era, or is it becoming more popular, or is it just
less?
Less.
Unfortunately.
Well, what do you think the future holds for opera? Will it eventually turn into something different, or will it get more digital, or is it always going to be like the classic? Do you think it'll ever get modernized, or is it going to continue classic?
Well, I think that the pitfall there is the more they would get away from the classic productions, is the more that it lessens the art.
Mm.
A great work is a great work for a reason.
Yes.
So, if you take Puccini's Bohème, or any Verdi, any great composer, they gave you everything on a silver platter. This is what the music is. This is what the setting is. This is what we need for you to be doing in every scene. This is what we need the conductor to be doing. This is what we need the music to be doing. And it's perfect. And it's perfect for a reason. If we get away from that and start doing, we live in a culture of instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's a book, or a play, or a movie, or a ballet, or an opera, we live in a culture where, God, I want to see that explosion now.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to see that girl now. I want to see the end now. We don't take the time for the ideas to progress. We don't have the patience or the time to wait an hour and a half or two to the end. And I think that's the more opera directors start playing to, and this particularly hurts opera.
Mm.
The more that stage directors start playing to, I need to find a way to shock the audience now, or I need to update this. It's no longer uh, 1900s Paris. It's 1944 Germany at the end of the war. So that doesn't right there. That doesn't make sense. Or it's 2400. You know, it's the year 2450, and we're doing Bohème in space or like that. The music is always the same, but it just doesn't have the same thing. So that's personal opinion. But in a certain sense, they have to do this in a sense because people don't take the time to learn to read about the opera they're going to go see. People don't speak the language, so you're reading the titles, and it's, I don't know what the solution is, but I do think the further away you get from the classic interpretation is the cheaping is not the right word, but you get away from what it's supposed to be.
I see that a lot in business. They sacrificed long-term stability for short-term gains, and so it's like,
For sure.
by trying to be trendy now, it could hurt you long-term.
Yeah. So if I go see an opera, wherever, this could be at the Met, this could be at La Scala, it could be in Houston, with a good cast, or maybe with a cast that isn't ready, but I come out of there not really seeing what the big deal is because, well, maybe the singers weren't that great, or I didn't get the stage in at all. It made no sense. So, in a sense, that's somebody that's not coming back. That's somebody that actually had a disappointing experience. And also I would say that a lot of productions, singers seem to study less now. That's not a knock on anybody. There's a lot of great artists.
Yeah. They just want to get carried by their talent less than their work ethic.
It could be, but I don't know how to. I don't want to sound in any way snobby or elitist, but I do believe in the value of practice and doing things when you're ready. But so I think that the opera is declining because you see productions that are either not as good as they should be. So you kind of you in a sense you dumb down the production and then you dumb down the audience. Or you get a person that really is great at crossover music, but shouldn't be an opera singer. So you go away thinking that's the ideal opera singer. So I mean, it's kind of like the audience expects less, and the theaters give you less, and the audience expects less, and less, like that. So that's a trend, I think.
Did you ever use a microphone performing, or do the tenors ever use microphones?
Very rarely. Very rarely.
So is it the resonance of the hall, or your voice is that
Both.
strong?
But it's not necessarily the strength of the voice; it's the placement of the voice. The placement of the voice is what makes it cut across the orchestra, because you have to remember. Usually, the orchestras there's a pit, and the sound's coming up. So it's the placement of the voice, which comes from technique, that makes it cut across and carry in a theater. I mean, sometimes you might have a big voice that you're closer and you're thinking, oh my God, this guy or this girl is going to knock this wall down. And then you can barely hear them in the theater. And the other way around, you're thinking, God, this guy, nobody's going to hear him, and then their sound fills the space. You use mics sometimes when it's like a open air production.
Okay. Yeah.
Where there's really a hall that captures that sound. Because a lot of times the theaters in Europe, or here as well, are part of the instrument. Because they're built to carry sound. They're built to absorb the sound and carry it through to the audience.
Amazing. Have you ever performed in any churches?
A ton of them.
Because I feel like those a lot of times have good resonance as well too.
Absolutely. One of my favorite places to perform here in Houston is All Saints. In the Heights. There's a concert series there that I've done, and wow, it's like you open your mouth and it goes everywhere.
That's cool. They say it's one of the reasons people like singing in showers, because nobody wants to feel alone, and just when you're singing with a little bit of echo, like your voice feels more full.
Sure.
It's like everybody likes singing in the shower. So after you practice, you said you love to practice. After you practice, do you feel more clear-headed or present, or?
It depends. It depends what you're practicing and how the practice goes. Sometimes you're frustrated. Sometimes I think it's good to have analyze what works, what doesn't work, and mentally for the next practice or what you need to work on. So as a performer, especially in the winters, you have to be very careful. You can't, so you really can't be outside because you don't want to get sick. You have to be very, very careful. So you're confined to to wherever you're going to perform is be very careful.
Huh.
You know that's another pressure
Yeah.
because so as a singer, more so than a dancer or a instrumentalist, your body is your instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So everything, depending on how your body feels, is how you're going to perform. You know, pianists can have a cold and play. You know, they might not feel that great, and they still might do a great performance. Uh, you know, a violinist might have not slept well last night, but he
Mhm.
can probably still come out and play. A singer, you know, I told you earlier, I'm congested. I probably couldn't sing today. So if I had to sing tonight, it'd be you know, it's a mess.
So singers have to be the most careful and take the most
I
care.
think so.
I agree.
I
I
think so.
definitely agree with that. Are there any foods you can't eat? Like some people say lactose or milk or lactose products kind of make the
To
voice
me, and I think to a lot of singers, spicy stuff.
spicy. It just dries out the.
No, well, to me, spicy brings up like a lot of phlegm and irritates the stomach.
Okay.
So that it makes you kind of hoarse.
Angela, do you have any favorite opera singer, performer, or inspiration?
I would say certainly my father.
Oh wow.
My father is still alive, but he was a great.
How old is your father?
99.
99. See, doing what you love keeps you going.
And he's always got a project in his head, and I think that's what's kept him
Wow.
active. He still teaches.
And his brain is still sharp as ever?
Absolutely.
Wow,
Absolutely.
at 99. And people are
99.
complaining 30 years before that just because they don't keep using the
Absolutely.
tools.
Absolutely. So I admired him the most, not only because of what he achieved in his career, but his generation of singers. I admire him and that generation.
Yeah.
That seemed like the last golden generation for opera singers, because they each had, not only did they study all their lives, but each one had a particular. This was this guy. This was this guy. Nobody wanted to sound like anybody else.
Wow.
And it was beautiful. It's like they all brought the music to life, their art to life.
Wow. The different. This is something not related to music, but I always tell people all the time the problem with the era we live in is with the groupthink, because everybody's on the same platforms getting the same information. You're meeting less and less characters. And so what you're talking about kind of goes with what I was thinking is back in the day, someone was a character, so you meet them, you remember them, they'd stick out. And so like that generation, like they all had their own style, and they weren't trying to be the other person, they were trying to find their own style.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And that's what makes life exciting is when you meet characters.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%.
So where's your dad living at these days? He's still in El Paso?
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. I feel like you're pretty blessed to not only have people who you're so humble and thankful to have in your life, but people that are actually close to you, because to be able to think your father is great, it's just like you come from something great, so you can feel good about the people you meet later, because if you,
right,
man, that's the coolest thing ever is when you really feel good about those you're close to.
Absolutely.
And so, what do you think the world needs more of today?
Well, certainly at the moment, more peace.
More peace and more opera?
Yeah, I mean, music is beautiful. People do. I mean, I think certainly the world needs peace. But as far as if we're on the topic of music, I think the world needs to be exposed to music more.
I agree.
For sure. To art, to music, to any kind of arts, because it's great for the mind. It's great for your hormones. It's great, you know. Like they say, listening to Mozart or to the great composers is great to develop a child's mind. Same thing for us. It's great to sit down and listen to a great symphony, because there's a beginning, there's an end, there's ideas. I think we need more exposure to that.
So yeah, more Americans need to listen to music besides just pop music. Not that you don't have to stop pop music, but wide variety.
Not just Americans. People in all over the world.
True.
It's the same for all of us. We need to take a moment to one thing for sure in modern America is in the world, but mainly here, it's a non-stop pace in life. You know, so you're going, you go through a drive-through feed, and you're still going. I think people need to stop and appreciate the culture around them, and just realize what art is, and realize where you are, and explore, learn about where you are.
I really like that presence, being engaged. Thank you, Mr. Ferrari. Is there anything you'd like to add or share? Any final thoughts?
Thank you very much. This has been an honor and a privilege.
I appreciate it. Thank you.